All right, we are live. Welcome to In the Know. We are doing a live episode. No idea how many people are online, if anyone's watching this. So we're just gonna do a normal show, and as we see comments and questions come across our feed, we will take time to answer them. Mason, how have you been? I know that you are absolutely itching for the basketball season to start. Right? Right?
Yeah. We're yeah, football started if you're into that sort of thing. I'm in the point where like early season I care, and then notably most of my teams halfway through the year make me not care as much. So fingers crossed that the Saints or keep doing all right. But yeah, I mean, I'm itching for basketball. It's been long enough. We got to get games back.
Yeah, football season started. I don't know. It doesn't bode well for our sponsor here, DraftKings. We have a little promo with football coming up later, but that's we'll get into that later. Football season started. Great, fantastic. I wouldn't have known. Actually, I do know because every time someone tweets like a highlight or like a football account, some football media, it just gives me another person to mute off my timeline. It's great. It's fantastic. So I appreciate the hard work, especially you, Ben. You do a lot of that stuff. Oh man. All right. Questions are coming in. Looks like we are live and we already got some Saints talk going on. So I'm just gonna ignore that, Mark. I'm sorry, bro. This is a Pelicans podcast. So we're gonna start off talking about a couple of Pelicans related things and talk about the league, and then we'll open it up, and as we see questions come in, if something's particularly relevant to what we're talking about, we'll also address that. So right off the gate, since our last podcast has been recorded, there has been a signing, actually a couple signings, but two important ones, which were two of the two-way slots that the Pelicans have being filled. Darion Sebron taking one of them, as I reported on draft night he was going to do. And then Isaiah Brockington taking the second one, which came to the surprise of many folks. There's something going on there. But Mason, when you first saw that news that Pelicans signed Isaiah Brockington, and in that tweet, it said he had a torn ACL and he's recovering through it. What were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the first question, the first thing that goes through your head is something along the lines of EJ. I think for most people, right? Because that was the one spot left up and down the roster, right? And so the question then becomes, what's going to happen with him? It sounds like Isaiah, they expect him to be healthy before EJ, which kind of makes sense given the general timeline of both injuries. But still, I mean, it's got to at least pique your interest to ask what's going on with EJ, because I mean the Pelicans externally are everything, they're doing all the right things, they're making him he's still effectively part of the team, he just doesn't have a contract, right? So I think that's the big question. And you were talking a little bit about the mechanics of how two-way contracts work and whether there are different options to the Pelicans at play here.
Yeah, so first things first, it was tweeted out, I think, by Andrew Lopez that Brockington tore his ACL or got injured during his workout with the Pelicans. So those pre-draft things that go on in April and May, in one of those events, Brockington tore his ACL. So it seems like the Pelicans feel really bad for the kid, and it seems like they do generally like him as a player and are kind of maybe finding a way to compensate him for getting injured under their watch, and also finding a way to sort of bring him into the organization, making sure he's taken care of. And that does not mean it has to be a long-term commitment. It means, the Pelicans can't necessarily offer him a camp deal, but signing him to a two-way perhaps gets him a little bit more money, allows him to rehab for the rest of the year. And then the Pelicans could waive him at any point, which could be tomorrow. It could be in 2 weeks. It could be in 4 months. We don't know when. They can waive him at any point if they want to sign someone else to a two-way, say like EJ Liddell. The interesting thing here is EJ is someone that they drafted and clearly, put resources into him in the form of a draft pick. And the Pelicans are completely full on roster spots. So the roster spot watch still is going on. It's ongoing. And I do believe that the Pelicans are trying to create this spot. I don't think they're in a terrible rush to do so. If I don't think they're going to spend really good first to make it happen, right? If a good deal comes along and presents itself to where they're getting an expiring back someone that can also contribute, someone that they can, perhaps flip two of their contracts for to turn into one, that'd be fantastic. And then they can slide EJ into that spot and figure out if they want to hold on to Brockington or perhaps sign someone else like John Butler or, vice versa, where they create two roster spots. And so we don't know. And I don't think they should be in a rush to do so because you have until the trade deadline to kind of make these things happen. And if you look at the past where when Najee was converted, when Jose was converted, that's kind of stuff happened at the end of year. So you have a lot of flexibility with what you can do with those two ways. But enough end of roster minutia, Mason. There was a big article out today on the main guy, Zion Williamson, and it was an exclusive interview that Will Guillory did with The Athletic in which Jasper Bibbs, I believe is the trainer's name. He former LSU trainer, former Jazz trainer. He details that Zion's in the best shape of his life, and he has a laser-like focus in commitment to, getting his body right, nutritionally, physically, from a flexibility standpoint, mobility standpoint, all of that stuff. Mason, what are your takeaways from this article?
Not much. It doesn't tell me anything that I didn't already expect, right? I mean, there are roughly 38 million reasons for Zion to come into camp with the best shape of his life this year, because if he makes one of the All-NBA teams, he gets the Rose Rule criteria and gets that elevated contract extension. So this shouldn't surprise anybody. This is now that Zion's got the contract locked in, which I think, was. Yeah, I don't think there would have obviously had to have been a catastrophic sequence of events for him not to get that max, as we're seeing now in hindsight, given that he got it, even with all the injuries. So this now becomes the biggest way he can earn more money on the floor. Obviously, let's put endorsements, everything else to the side. And so yeah, I think that he's going to be motivated himself too. I mean, there's a whole lot of reasons why he'd want to get healthy, and this is the best way to go about doing it. And I'm glad at least there's publicity around the steps that he's taking and how he's going about it.
Yeah, so I'm going to put a comment up from S. Deuce, who says, guys are starting to trickle into the building. I've heard that Zion's stepdad said they were doing their own stuff and said something like, we want y'all to be surprised on how he looks. And the follow-up from S. Deuce is, my question is, have you heard the same? Have you heard of what kind of shape he's in? Or is everyone currently in the dark? So as with all things Zion, what information gets released is tightly controlled and very intentional in terms of what comes out. So I think if you read Will Guillory's article, he mentions that the program that they set up with this trainer for the last 8 weeks was not something that the Pelicans developed, but they were aware of, and that is something I believe that they were in contact with, not just something that they were involved in designing. So he spent the last 8 weeks in Fort Lauderdale. We don't know. The only people that would know are Zion and his close family and the trainer and all that kind of stuff, like what actually went on in Fort Lauderdale. But as you said, Mason, I think right now there's every reason to believe that he is hugely financially incentivized to actually put in that work. And I do believe that he is in great shape from like third hand, chatter at best. I haven't talked to Zion, so it's not firsthand. I haven't seen Zion. It's not firsthand. I can only, talk about people I've talked to who may have seen or heard him. But from third hand type of stuff, I can say that, yeah, he is in good shape, but perhaps it remains to be seen, I think, in my opinion, what that's going to look like on the court. Because fact of the matter is, if he's in the best shape of his NBA career, that's a very scary proposition for other teams. Because when he wasn't in the best shape of his NBA career, he was a top 10 player when in that second year, like top 15, right? So if you're telling me that you're getting a better version than that, that's scary. That's very scary.
Yeah, I mean, all things that we talked about as probably in our last episode when talking about what the ceiling of this team was, and you saying that the Pelicans are going to get the 3 seed and anything else is an abject failure. I'm pretty sure those were your words. That's a direct quote, but yeah,
direct quote. What are you, Ball Sack Sports?
Yeah, so excited to see what it looks like on the floor. It's going to be, if he's out there and can give the team, the normal type starter minutes, the minutes he was given kind of in the peak when he was in peak shape the second year. There's a lot of opportunity for the Pelicans this year.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think everything that comes out at this time of year, this is actually relevant to JE's question, is like, what are the platitudes to check off on a bingo card and what's relevant and what we should take a little more seriously.
Day, right? That was the question.
Yeah, for media day. Actually, the original part of it is what are some media tidbits we should ignore that will be relevant next Monday or on media day. And I think this, ties into kind of what we're talking about. At this time of year, everyone's in the best shape of their life. Everyone's gained 10, 20, 15 pounds of muscle. Everyone's...
You take 3-4 months off of basketball and all of a sudden you're in the best shape of your life. It's wild.
Yeah. Everyone's, gone vegan or is on this keto diet and they're juicing, whatever's going on. So we hear that stuff every year, right? Russell Westbrook has reinvented his jump shot. That's a thing that has happened for the last 15 years.
Except for Anthony Davis, who admitted to not touching a basketball for a few weeks at the start of the offseason.
Yeah, right. So, it's a little bit difficult for any of us to definitively say, hey man, like this person's in fantastic shape or this person looks amazing. They're back, like in an open gym, they're hitting all these shots. You remember Nashville Jackson Hayes? I don't know if you heard the legend of Nashville Jackson Hayes, but he was apparently like the next KD. He was hitting shots from all over the court and he looked phenomenal. And we also heard that the legend of Nashville Herb Jones, and that's where the genesis of Not on Herb came about, and that ended up being very true, right? That ended up being like, holy crap, this guy is insane. So there you have two examples of things where perhaps one where the hype didn't live up to what it was proclaimed to be, and one where perhaps the hype was undersold to what it was going to be. And so I think it's difficult for us to project, but I do think that if Zion is meeting those like weight plus body fat criterias that are in his contract, which are super unique, if he's hitting those, the Pelicans are going to be in good shape. The Pelicans are going to be, as long as he's on the court, right? As long as he's, and the thing is, like, at the end of the day, there was some discussion about how, like, hey, Brandon Ingram and a couple of the Pelicans, I guess, like led some workouts in Malibu a few weeks ago, and Zion wasn't there, and Zion was doing his own thing, and people were upset, like, hey, here we go again. They're having these workouts, like Jose gave up his national team's berth or whatever. Like he wanted to go play for the Puerto Rican team. And he couldn't do that because he wanted to go commit to the Pelicans. And if someone's making that kind of sacrifice and Zion's not there, I think like as being one of the leaders and stars of the team, I think it looks not great. And people were upset about that. But I think, again, if he was truly in Fort Lauderdale at that time, working on himself, working to make him the best version of himself that he possibly can be, then does it matter, Mason? Does it matter if he doesn't show up to, like, how much does it matter if he doesn't show up to that kind of stuff, if he is, the top 10 level player that we think he can be?
Yeah, like, talk to me during the season, honestly. At this point, now that the contract's locked in, he's demonstrated his commitment to the Pelicans for the long haul, 5 years straight. I want to believe that if he thought his teammates would care, because that's what matters, right? It's being a teammate. I'm much less concerned about the optics from a fan perspective that at this point, now that he's signed his contract, than I am about him being a good teammate. And so I think if he thought that this was going to be a real problem with the team, then things would have gone differently. So I'm not really concerned about that personally.
Yeah, I'm I don't think it's a big deal on a scale of like 1 to 10. I think it's like a 2 in terms of like an offense. I do like roll my eyes at it a little bit. He had a quote at like media day, or not when he signed like his contract, where he was like, yeah, like, I'm going to lead some workouts similar to what he had the previous year. And he something along the lines of like, coach, just let me know what you need me to do and I'll do it. And I think it's like a little bit of like, okay, just show me, don't tell me at this point. And I think that's what it is with everything. So yeah, is it a big deal? No. Is it kind of corny? Yeah. Like, is it mildly annoying? Sure. But ultimately, will anyone give would anyone give a shit like in 4 months if he's healthy and if he's on his way to another all-star appearance? No. So I mean, I think that's where we're all at with Zion. But I guess let's move on from the Zion topic. Let's talk about something very important that happened. One of the Pelicans, actually, a couple of the Pelicans were playing internationally during Eurobasket, and now one of them is the MVP of Eurobasket, gold medalist. Also took part in eliminating the other. That is Willy Hernan Gomez.
So we know what. Are you going to take any credit for Billy's performance in Eurobasket?
Why would I take any credit?
Because you were out here talking about how the Pelicans' biggest need was front court help and a backup center for Jonas. I think Billy heard you and decided he was going to show the world why Shamit was full of shit. And
wow,
he took it to Rudy Gobert, man. That was awesome. And now the questions are: should he be the Pelicans starting center in this season? I think
should the Minnesota Timberwolves have traded 4 firsts and 3 swaps for Willy Hernan Gomez?
Probably.
I mean,
look at that salary.
One's an MVP. One's an MVP in Europe. So I think let's swing the other way, Mason. How much of a drop off, if you're only giving them 20 minutes a game, how much of a drop off is it from Jonas to Willy? Let's swing the other way.
I mean, it's a drop off.
It is a drop off, but how much?
Billy can't really shoot. Billy can't really play defense. You've turned this into a Willy Hernan Gomez slander session, which is ridiculous.
Why am I slandering him? I'm giving you the opportunity to say, hey, actually, Willy could take those 20 spot minutes and we can close with Larry and Trey, and you can actually use Jonas as a trade piece and get something different.
I can't go there.
I served that up on a platter for you, Mason. You didn't take it. You said I'm slandering him. Come on.
I can't go there, man. I can't do it. There's too much of a sample size on an NBA floor. I mean, no, it's hard to contextualize it around the NBA game because like we've seen what his strengths and weaknesses are, and it's hard to believe that he's going to materially improve in any situation. He's not going to get a lot better from what we've seen already, right? And so I think my opinion of him is not that changed, but I don't know. I guess
what would you
need?
You said he's not going to get a lot better. What area would you need to see like definitive improvement in to be there, to be like, hey, we can just use him as our spot starter?
I mean, I think this defensive end is where you need to see the most, like, because he's okay. Actually, I don't see a scenario where he's like, I compare him as a spot starter to Jahlil Okafor when we used him as a spot starter. Like, it's not.
Wow, I think he's better than Jahlil.
I mean, I don't think there's a significant difference between the two as far as what they're going to give you as a spot starter. But I think more practically as a backup 5, I think he helps you scoring, obviously scoring the ball. If you've got a lineup there if you try to throw a bunch of rangy, switchy defenders out there with him and let him kind of take a few isolation possessions, like I don't see an issue with that. But I don't know, spot starter. I don't think there's going to be a lot there because I don't think his skill set matches up well with the rest of the starting lineup.
I don't know, man. I feel like he can give you like 15 and 12 in 20 minutes.
And get outscored by 15 to his team in those minutes.
Probably. No rim protection going on there.
No, yeah, I mean, does it change your opinion at all about like any roster-wise anything?
I mean, not really. I think I think the Pelicans should still be looking to upgrade in all of those edge positions because they haven't proven anything. So if I have an opportunity to get better, I'm taking it. But I'm still in the camp of they don't need to be aggressive in any of these moves. And if the right move presents itself at the right cost, then to take it. And that may have to happen in February. We just don't know. So I'm fine writing it out. I'm fine experimenting with giving Willie some minutes. With Zion, running the second unit a little bit, trying different looks, seeing what things work. Because if you remember 2 years ago, when they first, Jackson's had multiple stints where he's been benched, and then he plays terribly, he gets benched, and then he comes back and he plays better. When they benched Jackson that first year with Stan, and Willie stepped in, and those bench units became Zion, Willie, Kyra, Josh Hart, and Nikhil. Like, those units surprisingly just dominated opposing benches. And a lot of that's just because Zion is Zion, and no opposing bench can handle that. But it just kind of, I think there's something there for them to experiment with in terms of, hey, can you juice up a couple lineups in terms of rebounding, in terms of interior scoring, and that make opposing benches struggle? Because a lot of times when starters rest, teams go small and teams put a wing on the floor, and all of a sudden, if you have Zion and Willie just eating all the rebounds, that's something that teams have to think about. So this is a pro Willy Hernan Gomez podcast from now on, Mason, and we're not hearing any slander otherwise. It's kind of crazy that the Pelicans have had 2 Eurobasket MVPs. Because Melly was one. I'm pretty confident.
Oh, I don't remember that, but I'll take your word for it.
Pretty confident that he was, but I could be wrong. Maybe he's EuroLeague MVP.
No,
yeah, and then Darius Miller was
Nico Mirotic was the EuroLeague MVP. That's what it was.
But did he win that after? Because he won a couple years ago.
Well, I mean, he was
but this is Eurobasket. Anyway, sorry, we're getting distracted. Someone's gonna have to correct us on the status of MVPs and the different kinds that there are. So I think the Pelicans' weaknesses in terms of their roster construction are what they are. So I still think I would like some big man depth. I would like some guard depth, and that's about it. I don't want any wing depth. I want Trey to get all the minutes. Do not get a wing that's going to take Trey's minutes. Obviously, if you trade for, I think, here we go. This is a comment up here.
No, put up the one before. Put up the first one before he. Because I saw.
Bogdano Bob. Bogdano Knob.
What's a Bogdanov? I need that to be defined. Just make up a fake definition and we'll share and we'll put it back on the
Bogdanov. Bojan Bogdanov. What about Bogdanov? Anyways, yeah. So obviously, if the Pelicans trade for Bogdanov, that would mean relinquishing Jackson Hayes and Devontae Graham. In my opinion, that is what would take from a salary standpoint to get the trade done. Otherwise, you kind of risk entering a tax territory that you don't really want to be in and struggle to get out of later in the year. That's what it would take, and that's a guy that plays some of those wing positions and would cannibalize some of Trey's minutes. So in that case, I would want Trey playing a lot of the backup 2 and a lot of the backup 3 or 4, whichever one Bogdanov's not playing.
I love that so much.
Bogdanov, and an investment in the bench going small, just so you're not cutting Trey's minutes.
I think that's fair. And the thing that seals the deal for me is the fact that there are a few teams that are probably going to be bidding for Bogdanov's services. And so I don't know if I want to, I don't think he's going to add enough to the Pelicans to be the team that offers the most for him. It just because of the opportunity cost, then which is Trey Murphy's minutes, or even someone like Alvarado. I just don't know. I mean, I don't know what Willie Green's rotations are going to be, and if Devontae Graham is high, well, I guess in this scenario he's traded, but just I think that's also a consideration here is trying to predict what rotations might look like, and I want to make sure that the right guys are getting opportunities, like you said.
Yeah, no, I mean, and then there's also Dyson Daniels. You can just plug at the 1 through 4 apparently. Which there was a question here. There was a Dyson Daniels question here. I will find it. Oh my gosh, where is it? There's been so many questions, which I really appreciate. Thank you guys for
put up Drew's in the meantime. What's up?
Oh
Drew?
Yeah, hey Drew. That's my OG. Actually, Drew, I think about moving to Japan on a regular basis. Every time I look at your Instagram stories, I'm like, why am I not living in that country?
For real, man.
Anyways, I can't find the Dyson Daniels question, but the question was something along the lines of, is he healthy? Has there been any
4
updates?
above Drew's? If you want to look at
4 above Drew's. Okay. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it was like, have we heard any news on Dyson? Yeah, so I have heard about Dyson, and he's totally fine from a health perspective, unless something's happened in the last week or 2 weeks that we don't know, and we're going to find out on a media day, hey, this person's had a season-ending injury. You know how the Pelicans love to surprise us with that stuff. But when they were out in Malibu and they were doing those team workouts, apparently he was a monster at those workouts. Like, he was really cooking, and they believe that he can take some minutes pretty soon, which is another reason why they're trying to open up a roster spot, consolidate some of the minutes. You know, if you send Devontae outgoing, that gives another opportunity to plug Dyson in different spots.
I would one of the preseason lineups that I would enjoy most is Jose, Dyson, Herb, Zion, and Trey Murphy. That would be, I mean, it would be fun in the regular season too, obviously, but I'm not sure how much run it would get. So I kind of want to see it in the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, Willie Green's going to be like, there's not enough Garrett Temple in here. So, yeah, or Tony Snell. Somehow Tony Snell's not even going to be on the roster. And Willie's going to be like, you know what we need? Some Tony Snell and some helping of Gary Clark, who's on a 2-way and has no future on the team. We're going to throw Gary Clark in here for 12 minutes. And Trey, you can just go sit on the bench. And Dyson, I don't know. I don't even know why you're on this team. Just go play in Birmingham. Oh my gosh. Anyways, this is a fun question. What do you think of Jackson's trade value? I look at Marvin Bagley as a rough barometer. It's interesting because my gut instinct is to say, like, Bagley being the number 2 pick has a higher pedigree and doesn't come with the pending legal stuff. Yeah, Bagley's a head case of a different sort. But I think had proven to be a much more competent offensive player, which gives a little bit of, I guess, more value, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, I think you just have to find that one team that's really in love with Jackson, because everyone was looking at that Marvin Bagley extension or not extension or what, the new deal that he got with the Pistons. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why would you give him that deal? Who was this suitor? Like, who were you competing against? I don't know. I mean, it just takes one team to think that he's the next Robert Williams or whatever athletic big that is impacting the game, and they want cost control. I kind of look at Phoenix as a fit for him. Ironically, I think they get younger here. They get some cost control as they're heading into, they have him at restricted free agency, so they can really mute his market if they need to. He lost JaVale, and Jackson and JaVale. I don't want to draw a line there, but with Chris Paul, maybe he can be as impactful as JaVale offensively, and if they can continue to develop defensively, maybe there's something there. I think for whatever reason, they're trying to get rid of Jay Crowder, and that would be the most hilarious trade of all time if Jay Crowder and Jackson Hayes were traded for each other in some form or fashion, given what went down in the playoff series. And I don't know if New Orleans fans how they would react if Jay Crowder was on this team, because I'm pretty sure those Jay Crowder shirts are still around. They're
definitely still around. I don't think there's enough of a long-standing track record for fans to hold a grudge still. I think fans would get over it, and I think that shirt would turn into a joke really fast. It's not like Crowder has been.
It would sell a lot of shirts.
What's that?
It would sell a lot of shirts. Come on, Boo Crew, get on this. Get on this. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, so what? All that aside, what would you if Jackson Hayes was not on your team right now? What would you give up to get him?
Absolutely nothing. I
Absolutely
mean,
nothing, right?
no, nothing. I would not. The all the stuff that's going on with him from a legal perspective still concerns the heck out of me. And like, no, I mean that like me personally, I wouldn't touch him. And like, I kind of want to see the Pelicans move on from him. But like, even just like, if I'm putting like an owner hat on who is further removed and maybe knows something I don't about the legal case that's ongoing with him or the civil. I'm not sure where the status is right now, but there's just the risk isn't worth it to me. I mean, he hasn't done enough consistently at the NBA level on the floor for me to want to go there. And so as far as trading something of value, so I'd say he's not. I wouldn't go if I was him. If I was not the Pelicans, there's nothing that really makes me want to go try to trade for him.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm kind of the same way. I just don't know what who would value him other than as a salary piece or just an intriguing throw in, and those things are typically valued as like second round picks at best. From pure compensation standpoint. Yeah. Otherwise, they're protected second round picks, and you're just like, because you look at. Stanley Johnson was the 8th pick, and the Pelicans got him at the trade deadline, however many years ago, for a bag of chips.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, cool. Like, and that's a wing, right? I think the wings are a premium commodity, especially at that point. And you're like, okay, well, we have Fred Vincent. Maybe you can turn into him the 3-and-D guy. And there was nothing there.
Lakers are still holding out hope. Or I don't know.
There's just nothing there with Stanley Johnson. Did they trade him?
No, I don't know.
Wasn't he part of the THT trade for Patrick Beverley?
Oh, maybe.
I think he was.
Yeah, I think he was. I think you're right. Yeah. The JE's comment is pretty much what I was expecting for this one.
Crowder and Jose together, just annoying the hell out of people.
The problem is it's going to take 40 games for you to get 10 good Jay Crowder games. But I mean, besides that, that's
one out of every 4. That's a good hit rate.
Yeah, it's like one Jason Smith move, like the Blake Griffin situation, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't have high hopes for Jackson, both on court and off the court. Just on court, there are no minutes for him. I don't know who needs to hear this, but there are no minutes for him. He sees himself as a 4. He sees himself as a starting 4. He sees himself as someone that doesn't really fit with Zion. There's no minutes for him. Like, if you're putting him at the 5, which is, I know there's a lot of hype about, he gained a lot of success playing at the 4. He gained a lot of success playing with the best 4 players on the team, rather than playing with Tomas Satoransky and Garrett Temple and all those people who can't dribble, pass, or shoot. He gained a lot of success playing with the best people on the team, and which is great. I'm happy that he's able to step up. But like, if he was able to hold down the backup 5 spot in terms of rebounding and defense, and provide the Pelicans what they need, then there'd be minutes for him if he was better than Larry Nance. Like, Larry Nance, I don't think people realize, is going to get the vast majority of those backup 5 minutes. Like, he's just going to get them. That's just the way that's going to work. And oh my gosh, I just reading the comment section. I got distracted. But yeah, I mean, I just don't think there's any minutes for him because the Pelicans are going to play those smaller lineups, and there's just better players at doing what he does on their roster.
Were you laughing at the Lakers question?
No, I was laughing at the Mike Evans question, and I have no idea who that person is. So it just seems like someone put 2 first names together, and it's like, all right, they're wearing a Steve Nash jersey after someone got ejected. I guess, I don't know. Anyways, this is the question I'm laughing at. Goes to know what I know about football. Anyways, yeah, no. What do you think about? Do you see any minutes for Jackson, given his skill set?
No. I there's No, I mean, there's the Pelicans again, harping on this, but they finally have wing depth for the first time in forever, and they're going to throw some funky lineups out there. And between that and having Larry Nance now, who can really he can play either of the front court positions depending on the matchups. Like I don't know, with Dyson Daniels and Trey Murphy, I think this team's going to get weird, and Jackson Hayes is certainly weird, but I think there are other guys who present more of an opportunity longer term for the Pelicans than him at this point. And so there's just not a lot of decision making that has to go on here, in my opinion.
There's minutes for him if he was a 36% shooter from three and shot like 5 or 6 of them a game. And the time to sort of try that was last year, and they didn't do that. And I don't know if they have the runway to try that this year. We'll see. But he needs to be a volume shooter from three. And I think the percentages will even out. I don't think he's a bad shooter per se. Like, I think he can hit about 35, 36%. But that's what it would take to get him on the court, because that would, at that point, he would provide a skill set that no one else provides, which is stupid athleticism and can shoot threes or takes threes.
And look, I mean, the talking points from before, when there was the hope around him, it still applies. Like he did learn to. He didn't start really playing basketball seriously until high school because he was playing football. And so could his growth trajectory be different as a player because of that? And could there be more upside there? Yeah, but I think the Pelicans have invested enough capital in him trying to figure it out. And he's not in multiple ways, he has not delivered. And so it's the end of the line for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think, are there nights where we could see Jackson and Nance together? Sure. But if you just look at who's available, why would you not just give those minutes to Zion or Trey or Brandon and Jonas? So the way I'm looking at it is, if you have 96 front court minutes available between the power forward and center position, you have, how are you going to distribute that between all those guys? How are you going to distribute that between Jonas, Jackson, Nance, and Zion? So Zion, I think you would want at least getting 30 minutes a game if he's healthy. You want him closer to 35, but let's split the difference and say 33. And then so from 96, you're left with 63 minutes. And
you call it, you have 25 minutes left after the first three, after Zion, Jonas, and Nance. I think you've got about 25 minutes left to play with at most.
Really? I think you have less.
Yeah, probably less. I mean, I gave 30 to Zion, 30 to Jonas, and 20 to Nance, which is probably underselling Zion, right? But so I mean, 25 minutes left, and then at most, and then you're going to have lineups where you only have one traditional big in there, right? And especially, Trey Murphy, you want to play him at the 4 a little bit, Brandon Ingram a little bit at the 4.
Right. That's what I'm saying is, if you look down the roster and you look at all the options available to you at either the 4 or the 5, people who can play those positions in whatever lineups you want, which one is Jackson definitively better than? And I think that's a fair question.
And the Pelicans are past the point where you're just giving guys minutes based on potential in year 3 or year 4. So, I mean, if it's a rookie, that's one thing, but anyway.
Yeah. We'll see what, what it looks like in camp if a trade doesn't happen before camp. And we'll see how they choose to handle those minutes. But how do we rank JV as a center in today's NBA? Is he top 10 or just outside?
These questions are always hard because I've got to go through my head the list of 5s.
So let's start at the top: Jokic, Embiid. And so what makes it difficult is all right, well, is Davis a center? Are we counting Giannis?
He's really made sure people don't think he's a center. So no, he's
are we counting LeBron? People who can play center. If we look at strictly 5s, strictly 5s, you have Jokic, Embiid, Towns, Gobert, Bam. That puts us at 5.
Yep.
You still have, in my opinion, Jarrett Allen.
He's top 10. Yeah, this is quickly becoming clear to me that he's top 10, I think.
Jarrett Allen, DeAndre Ayton, And I think Robert Williams.
Williams. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I would put Jonas after those guys.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so you wouldn't take Miles Turner over him? I just
Bro.
your race.
Miles Turner, poor guy. He's got Sabonis would be in that group, but I think Jonas is better than Sabonis.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I think Jonas is better than Sabonis.
That surprised me. I thought you were messing around.
I was a big Sabonis guy until, I really sat down and I'm like, look, Jonas is giving you more on the defensive end. Jonas is giving you more impactful rebounding. Jonas, what he doesn't have in the passing, because he's not a dribble handoff merchant, is he's making up for in just being a brute that doesn't get bullied and is the one that does bullying. Sabonis, I think, plays a little too. I don't like using the term soft, but that's kind of like the way to describe it. Where Jonas is willing to take the physicality in the matchups. Sabonis is frequently overpowered by some of the bigger players, and that's kind of a weakness of his. So I will take and JV was better than Sabonis in Lithuania for in this whole summer. This whole summer.
You take Jonas over Vucevic, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right, same.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the past, like Vucevic has had some years where you could be like, okay, this is like probably not a fair question, but I think Jonas is surprisingly people. If you look at like the any of the impact stuff, Jonas has always been very, very, very good. So I take Jonas. But Sabonis is a very good player. I love his deal. It's the competency in the drop defense for Jonas that really sells it for me. He's been a plus defender on 3 different teams, like 3 different contexts. Like that's pretty crazy. If Gobert is top 10, is Willie top 10?
Where's some Gobert?
Willie, yeah, where's Willy Hernan Gomez in the top? Would you take Willy Hernan Gomez over Miles Turner?
Billy or Christian Wood? Go.
I mean, no question. There's no question I would take Willy Hernan Gomez. And I'm not being facetious in the slightest sense. You give me a team and tell me which center you want on your team, I'm taking Hernan Gomez 15 out of 10 times because Hernan Gomez is widely regarded as one of the best humans and teammates in the whole league. There isn't a single player that doesn't like being around him, and he like actively uplifts the whole roster, whereas Christian Wood is very much the opposite of that. And there's a reason that every team that he's been on has been pretty happy to let him go. And his value was what it was this summer. So yeah, give me Hernan Gomez and I'll figure the rest out.
All right. I can't say I didn't see that coming.
We didn't talk about Sarver and
no, we didn't
any of that stuff. So if you missed any of the NBA news, the NBA decided to suspend Robert Sarver after a lot of investigation and interviews for 1 year, and they were announced his replacement, who was forgetting his name. But the funny part about his replacement is he's apparently no better than Sarver.
In the Reagan administration or something like? No, it wasn't Reagan. Was it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Anyways, he's like no better than Sarver in terms of fostering that kind of toxic environment. And some of the stuff that the NBA did was pretty suspect in terms of how Adam Silver handled the press conference. How and look, I don't want to like say like, oh, they had their hands tied because of like legalese and all of that, but they kind of did, because at the end of the day, like Adam Silver works for the owners and the owners have a great deal of say what kind of happens here. And the stuff about like, oh, like our investigations did not find there's to be like racially or sexually motivated in any way, reads a lot like lawyer speak in terms of like, hey, like, if this went to court, we would be obligated to prove it. And at this moment, I don't know. It seems like it seems like they were trying to avoid making accusations that they could get sued over, which is stupid, in my opinion, because I think anyone can call a spade, and Sarver just really needs to get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing that bothered me most, and we talked about this a little bit, is some of the things that anytime Adam Silver said something that could even be remotely construed as defending his character, that was the line for me, because there was a lot of things that like you said, there was, this is what, if you want to say, had to happen for legal reasons, or what, what was always going to happen, something like this. And he was never going to be, forcibly removed. But you don't have to say that, he's made strides in his 18 years when that's patently false. I mean, there are clear examples even recently about how problematic he's been. And so that's what really upset me. And, I don't know. It is very, very bothersome. And I feel for whoever, all the employees who were, put in those uncomfortable and hostile environments. Hearing that, you just got to be just devastated. So it's he could have done better.
Yeah, it's a pretty shitty situation. I'm interested to see what the fallout of it's going to be, given the players who have spoken up, with Chris Paul, LeBron,
PayPal.
a few, PayPal threatening to withdraw as a sponsor. Kia releasing the most non-committal, we stand with the NBA's decision and their findings, and it's like, okay, cool. Why'd you even say anything? Like,
thank you.
Could have said nothing. Yeah. But I mean, it's going to be interesting because they now have a year to sort of put in the framework to create a sale and get him out of here, which is hilarious that a person's punishment could be billions of dollars. Like, that is your punishment. You get billions of dollars. Yeah. Or a portion, like, I don't know what what percent of the Suns he owns. Someone said around 35%. So whatever, I guess if the Suns are worth $2 billion, then great. 700 million in the pocket. Great. I'm sure that's nice and just. Anyways, moving on from the Sarver stuff, more on to the league stuff. Shams Charania released some reporting regarding the CBA talks that are been progressing. There was a few key points. The first of which being that the NBA might look into lowering the draft age to 18. I think that's been kind of kicked around. The 2022 draft, actually, this previous one was supposed to be the double draft, and that didn't happen, and now it might be 2024. And my question is, Mason, who actually wants this to happen? Which party of all the parties involved is incentivized to make this happen?
CJ McCollum, man. Get on board with my tinfoil hat conspiracy theory here. So the Pelicans, he's up for extension with the Pelicans. The Pelicans, if they get the double draft in 2024 when they own the Lakers draft pick, would have two shots at that. They also have the second round for the Bulls, which could be okay. And so there's incentive for the Pelicans to want this to happen. CJ's the NBA Players Association president. You scratch my back, and they create an advantageous situation for the Pelicans, and CJ gets paid. So that's what's going on here, Shamit. Nothing more. But
of course.
Beyond that, your question is a very fair one.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about it from a front office standpoint. Just about every front office person I've talked to in the last few years has strongly expressed that if the gates were open for high school players to become eligible again, it would just make the scouting a complete nightmare. It'd be impossible to, not impossible, right? I don't want to use the word impossible. It just makes it overwhelmingly difficult to contextualize those players against college players and international players, and it makes everyone's job harder, and resources are already stretched too thin in terms of watching all these players grow. And then you have to make a decision on, hey, this 18-year-old, are you ready to hand them $40 million in guaranteed money? Like, are you ready to hand them and invest in them? And then I don't think there are front offices that want to make their job more difficult than it already is. And you can see the draft has already been kind of a crapshoot. And front offices aren't that great at it. Some are, some aren't. I don't think they want that. So there's that. Two, from the vet standpoint, the current player standpoint, why would they want to increase the number of players entering each year that will potentially take their spot?
I guess is that second point a long-term concern though, or is that just a short-term concern as we kind of calibrate for this the additional year?
I mean, it depends, right? It depends on if there's any further changes made to accommodate for those roster spots that are available. But if you don't make changes to roster spots, then why would current players be on board with increasing the player pool?
Yeah, I'm. It's kind of like a math exercise to a certain degree, because like there's the obviously the year one, which is like a shock to the system, right? Because you have twice as many players, that are coming up.
Is it twice as many?
No, it's not 2x. It's definitely not. But it's
so. And then that ties into my third point: is do the young players even want it? Because if you don't go in the first round, you're putting yourself up to a lot of financial risk. So if you don't go in the first round, you're not getting that guaranteed money. You have these days options with the G League Ignite that pay you pretty well. You have options with NIL rules that pay you pretty well. You have options with the NBL. You have options to go to Europe. You have options to play in other professional leagues, and then solidify your stock into the first round. So how many players are we going to see truly make that jump? And to me, I think it would be players who are surefire, not like surefire, but like are some of the top prospects in their class.
I agree. Yeah.
And so I think it would have been like last year, if Chet Holmgren didn't go to Gonzaga, I think people knew he was going to be one of the better prospects, and I think he would have jumped into the NBA, probably been taken pretty high in that draft, knowing that, hey, we have years to develop this guy. So players, I think it benefits those guys. How many players a year like fit that qualification? Like look at the stuff with Shaedon Sharpe this year. I mean, he ended up going top 7, which was like great for him, but like that was already so messy from an evaluatory standpoint. Like teams had no idea what to do with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, hard to put a number on it, but I think it's gonna impact the players at the top of the draft, or the surefire lottery picks. You'll have some guys who, if they're projected in the first round, that it's an extra year of being a professional in the NBA, and so I could see if you're getting assurances, or you're getting if it's likely that you're going to be a first round draft pick. That's, guaranteed contracts. And I can see it, because even the best alternative is not making as much money as that. And so I don't know. I think it'd be maybe a few more players and just a surefire lottery picks, but your point still stands.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably going to be players that fall to the second round too, that are interesting 18-year-olds that decide to stay in the draft, and teams are like, all right, cool. Like, let's just take a flyer on this guy and get him into our organization, see what he does. You maybe give him a 2-way, maybe give him a couple like years non-guaranteed, and put him through the G League system. There's going to be interesting stuff. But I don't know. It just seems pretty complicated, and I just don't see a whole lot of financial incentive to get this done from any sides. And the thing that I kind of talked about is maybe they increase the number of 2-way slots available from 2 to 3. I think that would make a meaningful difference. I think teams would be more willing to accept that. I
mean, we should talk about the human side of this, which is they're 18, they should be able to go play professionally, right? And so, like, I feel like this is the right thing to do. And whether you're, again, when we're talking about who's motivated to actually make this happen, it's hard to figure out like where this would be coming from, beyond that this has been talked about for a while. But look, they're 18. They should be able to go play in the NBA if they want to go play in the NBA. So I'm excited that this is hopefully something that will happen. But yeah, I mean, we still got to get across the goal line. So
fair enough. As long as the Pelicans will gladly grant their pick back to the Lakers at the behest of Joe Vardon, whatever his name is, just so Bronny can go play with his dad. Anyway, second point in the CBA talks that Shams brought up was deciding making the luxury tax more harsh, more than it currently is. And that is another thing where I'm like, okay, who's actually pushing for this? Like, I can't get to the bottom of why the players would want that. If owners are given another excuse not to go into the tax, that means they're going to do what they can to not pay the players what they're worth. And at some point, some players are not going to get the money that they would have gotten, because some owners are going to be like, I can't go into the tax. I just won't do it because the penalties are too harsh. So I don't know who is actually pushing for that. And then as far as ownership, I mean, I guess ownership would push for it, but why? Like, I mean, ultimately it's their money. There's some owners that are just complaining about the Warriors and the Clippers and their big bills, but there's been one team who has spent all of that money actually like come out with a championship, the checkbook championship, as Brian Windhorst would call it. and they already had all of those players like on their roster for the most part. It's not like they like have gamed the system. Like,
well, I think it's herd mentality to a degree, right? So if you're creating harsher penalties for luxury tax teams, the thought would be that starts to influence even the biggest spending teams to pull back a little bit, and that inherently reduces market value for everybody. And so that's kind of your point around why the players wouldn't want it is exactly why the owners would, I think. And it's basically about making sure that every team thinks a little bit more now about the money they're spending. But we'll see if that actually plays out.
Yeah, but I mean, my thing is like, if you have a massive luxury tax bill, that's just more money in the league rev share. Like, that's going to get redistributed back to the small market owners that aren't paying the tax. Like, that's how it works. Mm-hmm. And so do they want less money in that pool because the penalties are harsher? And again, I just, find me the team. Everyone's like, oh, these owners are just going to spend. And that creates a competitive advantage. Where is that competitive advantage? Mikhail Prokhorov spent like $300 billion. I don't know. I'm making that amount up. But he spent an insane amount of money with those Nets back then before he sold the team to Joe Tsai. He never won anything, right? The Clippers, Ballmer spends. They haven't won anything. The Warriors spend, and they won. But they had Steph on the roster. They had Clay on the roster. They had Draymond on the roster, and they traded for Wiggins. It's like, all right, cool. Like, they won. Great for them. But I just don't see it being an issue where like, oh, well, Golden State's going to keep spending and they're going to keep winning. Like, those guys are 35 years old.
I mean, the Nets were just a roster building disaster, right? I find it hard to throw stones at the Clippers because they've had just some devastating injury problems, and to Bombers, yeah. I mean, broader point, I get it, but I mean, Ballmer invested more money in the team last year because of what it could be this year, and so I kind of want to jury still out a little bit on the Clippers, I think, but yeah, I mean, injuries happen; it can derail even the most expensive team, or just incompetence in the Nets case. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of ways that things can go south no matter how much money you spend.
Dude, all I'm saying is that if Ballmer wants to open up his checkbook, making these penalties harsher isn't going to stop Ballmer. That's just going to make the disparity from wealthier owners to non-wealthier owners, or I guess owners who, they're all fucking wealthy. I don't want to use that term. They're all wealthy. It's just going to make the disparity between willing owners and unwilling owners even greater.
Throw up that comment. That's pretty much what you're saying.
Where?
The last one.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's silly. Like, if it's so stupid. These are all people with billion-dollar net worths, and if they want to complain about other owners spending their money, then they should just spend some more. Just spend some more. Like, oh my God. Like, it's not that hard of a concept. You have all of the money in the world and you're not going to run out of it. And you're just never going to run out of it. It's never going to.
Do you think that some of the owners for the smaller market teams like get calls from their NFL or MLB brethren and say like, your average salary is what? You spend how much on who? And just like starting to get like annoyed about it. Like how much of that is like just I mean, because the contracts are a little bit wild in the NBA compared to others, which is just the nature of the sport and the number of roster spots. But still, like I do wonder how much talk there is amongst some of these.
It's ultra. I don't care about what these billionaires talk about. Just spend some money. Like the Pelicans have never, ever paid the tax in their history. Never. Yep. Never. And we're all optimistic that Caleb Benson's going to do it, especially when, push comes to shove and Zion's here and Brandon's here and they're going to be good. We're all optimistic. The last thing we need is another reason for the people in her ear to be like, oh, I don't know if we should open that checkbook.
Yeah.
I don't know, Miss B. I don't know. We should probably spend it on our football team. Like, that's the last thing we need is that.
Yeah.
Like we already have people in the NBA who are ownership level people talking about how Milwaukee lost like $40 million the year they won a championship. That's a loser mentality. What do you mean lost $40 million? They won a fucking championship. Like, what are we talking about here? You guys are worth billions of dollars.
Yeah, and if you read Sam Amick's article about the Lakers today, you'll see that they're already targeting Chris Middleton as a possible free agent next summer. So they're zeroing
like a 4-year, $160 million deal. What is he a free agent already?
Next year, yeah.
What? What?
Pretty sure.
Yeah, okay. There's no way. Chris Middleton, I gotta Google this contract. Give me a second.
Yeah, man. Hold on.
I thought he signed with Drew and he signed that 4-year, like $160 million.
He's got a player option for 23.
Oh my God, you're right. Where did time go?
Huh. We'll see. That'd be something if it's the two teams the Pelicans own future draft picks from having a standoff for Chris Middleton.
Yeah, that'll be great. It'll be fantastic. But yeah, so there was something else in the Shams article. It talked about players discussing how to create generational wealth and potentially getting an equity pool or something similar. It was very vague language, and I think he just wanted to just throw the word equity in there because it's a buzzword, and it could mean fucking anything. And I don't know if there is a meaningful pathway for them to accomplish within this round of negotiations, but I would bet that the players are using this to negotiate for something else. Be like, hey, we want this, but really what we really want is this other thing. And
probably Spencer Dinwiddie's idea.
We actually want it in Spencer coin.
Spencer coin.
Give us for every $10 million we make, give us 1 million in Spencer coin. He I don't think he lost a lot of money because he got a portion of his contract in Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure. I don't know.
Not something I follow, but yeah.
Good for Spencer. That's gonna be very interesting. Anyways, we've gone on for an hour and the questions have stopped rolling in. So we're going to end this with a shout out to our sponsor, the one and only DraftKings. Obviously, football season is here, and I love football. So the NFL action is in full swing here at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. We're talking touchdowns, big plays, and even bigger wins. And if you're a new customer, you can bet just $5 on any NFL team and get $200 in free bets. So you know me, I'm going to put on $5 on the Saints, I guess. That's the team I know. And I can get $200 in free bets. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use the promo code BOOT, B-O-O-T, and get $200 in free bets if your team wins when you place your $5 bet on any football game. So me, being this football idiot I am, I'm going to place this $5 bet and get $200 in free bets. So that's code BOOT, B-O-O-T, and only at DraftKings, which is the official partner best sports betting partner of the NFL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, crisis counseling and referral services can be accessed by calling 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. So you heard it, folks. That's DraftKings. And do want to shout out Royal Honda for also sponsoring our podcast, which was very nice of them to do. DraftKings.
That was nice. That was well done.